In the last video of the highs and lows of Silent Hill, I did a pretty substantial list of all the mainline Silent Hills and kind of told my thoughts about the games, whether they were good, bad, and generally I had a good and bad thing to say about each and every one of them. However, the biggest takeaway from the video was in the comments, you guys asked for the rest of the games, the stuff I left out, which was intentional because I just kind of stuck with them mainstreams, but it was requested enough that you guys actually wanted me to do the other ones. So fine, I don't see why not. I mean, these are the less loved Silent Hills, but I can definitely throw those in, and I'll cover the new ones while we're here as well. So without further ado, here are the other Silent Hills highs and lows. Okay, it shouldn't come to anyone as a surprise, but Konami made a Silent Hill arcade game. And it shouldn't be a surprise because Konami is infamous for their arcades and gambling devices. They love pachinko machines, they love slot machines, and they love arcades. That's just how it's always been. If they were left to their own devices and they never touched a single console, that's where they would live, in the land of the arcade games. That being said, they had a staff member by the name of Hiroyuki Ashida, rather. He was pretty established in the world of Konami arcade cabinets, and they hired him to do many of them. One of which I just learned is a Castlevania arcade cabinet, and that looks nuts. The instruction manual alone just to play the game came with 2 controllers, like Wii remotes, and you used them like whips. It was nuts. So anyway, Silent Hill Arcade came out, and it was the most bare-bones story I've ever seen. The voice actors were hilarious, and a lot of the game itself seemed to be a just slew of rehashed locations, monsters, and other, instances in the game itself where those that have played the game in the past were excited, and for great reason. You got to play an arcade game version of Silent Hill. The idea was nuts. That is until you play it, of course. Then everything kind of took a really, really weird turn, as you'll find that compared to most light gun shooters, this was the most bare bones of all of them. You could shoot, you could reload. Every now and again, you could pick a direction to go. It took a lot of influences, rather. It took from House of the Dead, and you could tell by the way they formatted the game and the structure of the game itself. Now, I will tell you that the only high in this game is more of a personal nature. It was good to see a Silent Hill arcade game. Like the idea itself, the appearance of it, the tattered edges on the sheets covering the arcade cabinet. It was built like a Jurassic Park or a Halo arcade cabinet, where you would go inside of a kind of quarantined area and it would have a covering, so you'd be in your own kind of room. The only problem was every bit of what you played took away from the environment that they built around the cabinet itself. The highs were absolutely just the wonderment of playing a Silent Hill game that was built into an arcade cabinet, and that novelty wore off fast, because the biggest down note and downside of everything going on with this thing was, in fact, the story. All of it. Everything ranging from the awful voice actors to what actually happened in the storyline itself. It did get a UFO ending, which came with a Gradius Easter egg, which was kind of funny, but outside of that, your storyline is nothing more than a bunch of students in an occult club literally go to Silent Hill to look into the mystery of a ship that crashed into Luca Lake, or sank into Luca Lake, maybe, they don't know, and finding out the mystery behind it and whatever happened to it. And in the good ending, you save the ship and it rides out into the wilderness or the ether or the great beyond and everything's good. Or in the bad ending, you don't save the day and everyone wonders why you did not in fact save the day. That's it. You get a pistol, you find health drinks, and you shoot all sorts of classic monsters and a whole lot of made-up ones that come at you in droves like it was Dynasty Warriors, and you just continue to kill and kill and kill until they tell you that you have a choice to make, left or right, or down or up. And that's it. That was it. So the biggest downside was, in fact, the storyline. The upside was the fact that the arcade cabinet looked awesome. It did. That's the only good and bad I can tell you about this. Anyway, moving on. Silent Hill Origins came out for the PSP, and it was made by Climax Studios. Now, this is one of my more prevalent turning points for the series itself. See, I think Origins was the very first of any of the Silent Hill games that turned to new developers, but they hung on to as much source material as humanly possible. And it was shown by the way that this was a prequel to Part 1. You got to see a little bit of what happened behind the scenes, which is a lore dive that I had been asking for since Part 3 had come out. You know, I wanted to know what went on there, and Dahlia and Alessa and everything like that. So the idea was awesome. And when you finally get your hands on the game, one of the things you have to understand is that the PSP, it didn't have the craziest graphics. However, a lot of the PlayStation 2 style graphics were now implemented into a handheld. And I could not complain about that. I could complain about the UMD and the size of the thing and how they were tiny discs, and so the games were short and things like that, but that was of little consequence. Ultimately, we had a Silent Hill game, and more importantly was another expansion of Part 1, which you'd think Konami would take the hint after so long, being that Part 1 seems to be the one that everyone likes a lot and would like to see more dives into and things like that, but alas, here we are. So Silent Hill Origins covered the beginning of everything, the genesis of the Alessa storyline, and the biggest downside with this game was that it implemented a inventory system that allowed you to store just everything. You could get wrenches, TVs, whatever, filing cabinets, didn't matter. You had them in your inventory and you used them against enemies, and they worked for a time, but the biggest problem was the durability. And a lot of folks may remember there is a game called Dead Rising, very popular game, you might have seen it. Also one of my favorite Capcom games, but it kind of used that operating system. You couldn't go and craft anything, but you could pick up these items and you could use them as you saw fit. The only problem with that was it was one more thing to worry about that took away from the storyline. And so while you're running from nurses and things like that, you'll realize that your bar of wood is about to break, or your TV has shattered, or your filing cabinet has blown up into paper everywhere and things like that. I don't think it did anything for the game. It added an extra difficulty curve, and it added an extra bit of tenseness to what you were doing. But I wasn't here for that. I was here for the storyline, especially because it was a throwback to Part 1 again. So to have that implemented, I think that was the biggest downside. It's not a huge downside, don't get me wrong, but it was a downside nonetheless. And actually, in terms of the most loved and unloved Silent Hill games on this list, I think Silent Hill Origins is probably more loved than it is unloved. The good side, by far, is the storyline itself. While the main character isn't really pertinent to anything going on in Part 1 and 3, you do get to find out about Alessa, and it's a lore dive that was much needed. It was something that was an answer to a question that you asked but didn't get an answer to for years. And it was nice to see Alessa's storyline build on that, and they line everything up perfectly, all the way down to making a split version of Alessa so that Harry can pick her up and adopt her, and things like that. I absolutely loved that part. I can't be mad at Climax Studio for their attempt in what they did here, because there are attempts later on that kind of try to follow the same plot lines or plot points or just universal information, and they fumble in every step of the way. So this will be the last time I see something try to adopt the storyline and add a little bit of its own original flavor, and I enjoyed it. I really did, and I wish I saw more like it, but unfortunately we move on to other things. Now, play novel Silent Hill was the first official sequel, if you can call it that, to the original Silent Hill, and this came out for Game Boy Advance, and it was Japan release only, and it told the story of Sybil and Harry through a interactive novel. You couldn't really die or game over or anything like that, and you were only reading walls of text. Now, for a while, you could only play it in Japan, and then once it was brought over to America by fans, they had to translate it themselves. Now here's the interesting thing that you guys may not be aware of. There is another main character in this story, and only in this story, or this game rather, named Andy. And Andy is the next door neighbor to Harry and Cheryl. You follow his adventure. As it turns out, once Harry and Cheryl go to Silent Hill, Andy kind of tags along and does a stowaway thing, and so it follows his story. Now, the only confounding part about this is the fact that you'll never get that story. You'll never get to hear that story. And the reason why is because Andy is one of the first earliest reports of downloadable content. You needed a mobile adapter connected to your Game Boy, and you would download Andy's plotline and then play it. The catch-22 behind that is if you download it, and it's based on chapters, for every new chapter you download, it erases the old chapter. Now, I don't know if this is an oversight, an error, or whatever the case may be, but ultimately, no matter what, there was no way to chronicle everything because you had to overlap the information in order to get the new episode. But there are some images, some still images of, what the plotline would have looked like and things like that. But ultimately, Andy is a mysterious protagonist that not many people are ever going to get to know about. The highs and lows. Now, this is interesting because I can tell you with great certainty the lows are this game, number one, didn't need to exist. There was no reason to make an interactive novel on the Game Boy Advance for Silent Hill. No one was going to play it and go, I must play Silent Hill now. No one was going to become a fan based on this game. Unless I'm wrong, pop into the comments and let me know, but unless this game converted you to a true Silent Hill fan, this is more of a niche item that was made, and they just kind of called it a night. So the biggest downside to this thing is it literally did not need to exist. And I try not to be too negative about these things, but just going through it, and I played through the interactive play novel. Somebody transitioned into a website instead, so you didn't have to download a Game Boy Advance ROM and then get sued by Nintendo for $18 billion. You can actually play through the game. And yeah, that was it, really. The plus side of this game, I'd have to say the digital trading cards. For whatever reason, in their great wisdom, they implemented a trading card game, or a digital trading card system, into the game itself. Every time you beat the game, you got a collectible card. And so you would go through, and every time you got, either Harry's storyline or you played through Sybil's storyline as well, you would unlock a trading card. And I like any game with trading cards, so it's entirely personal why this is a plus. But otherwise, yeah, this game is just weird. It doesn't make sense why it needed to exist. They had already put out content. This game came out 6 months before Silent Hill 2 came out. Like, there was literally no reason for this game to even... Anyway, I digress. But yeah, that's the Silent Hill, actually, I'm sorry, this play novel, Silent Hill. Now, a lot of people get that mixed up. It's not Silent Hill play novel. It's the other way around. There's a difference. Because reasons. Silent Hill Book of Memories is exactly what happens when you take a franchise to a game and you ask the question, hey, what if we made it an entirely different genre just because, with no discernible reason? And that's what you get. This was quite literally a Diablo clone with Silent Hill skin. And a lot of people really didn't even give it the time of day. The idea itself and concept sent most old school fans in another direction. You had to get a PlayStation Vita in order to play it to begin with, which I didn't have at the time. So when I heard about this coming out, I had double incentive not to get this game. And don't get me wrong, one of the reasons I got a PS2 was because Silent Hill 2 came out. That's why I got the console, was for the game. It was not reciprocated when Book of Memories came out. Book of Memories, in my opinion, is an abomination. The downside is far, far greater than any good side, but I will tell you that the downside of this game is the fact that it went to Dungeon Crawler as a form of playing this game. It didn't matter what the plot was. It didn't matter any of it. It was the fact that you decided to turn a franchise that was based on survival horror into a absolute shot-for-shot Diablo clone. And not even a good one. your character was just selected from a preset group of ragtag teenagers, and you went deeper and deeper into the pits of Silent Hill using your weapons and items you found and loot drops and things. It was just awful. Any way you sliced it, it upset me when it came out. It was that bad. Now, there might be people out there that play the game now or enjoy it. To that I say, more power to you. I was not one of those people. The plus side of this game, really, honestly, it kept Silent Hill in the mouths of people and gamers and Konami even. The fact that it came out meant, much like the Amazing Spider-Man series, since it was created, it gave people a reason to keep saying the name and title. You know what I mean? It gave people a chance to know that there was still Silent Hill games being released, and that was all I could be thankful for. Now, some would even say that maybe you shouldn't have made this game, and even if everyone forgot about Silent Hill after this point, then so be it. And that's great and everything, but I wanted the franchise to continue. I wanted it to thrive, but after this game had come out, I was not convinced that was happening. So the last resort was just hoping that as long as people still talk about Silent Hill, Konami wouldn't give up on it and move on. And that's it. That's sadly it. Any other information on this game you're looking for, you won't find it here, to be fairly honest. Konami had a good idea here. Hire Hideo Kojima, legendary Metal Gear Solid writer, creator, designer, lord. And when everyone found out that the PT demo was in fact a Silent Hill demo entitled Silent Hills, they clamored. People wanted this. This was exactly what was going to revitalize Silent Hill and turn it into something legendary, is what people thought. The only problem was Hideo Kojima is an expensive date, which means Konami eventually ended up firing him because he blew over budget, and half the time he kind of did everything he wanted willy-nilly, and despite the fact that he made gold, Konami didn't want to pay for it anymore. Now, this is alleged, of course. No one knows the real reason why he got fired, but he lost the ability to continue making Metal Gear The Phantom Pain, as well as the Silent Hill upcoming series. Now, what sucked about that was he actually got Norman Reedus to play the main character in the Silent Hill game, so there's no telling how crazy this would have been. But we got the demo. And I will tell you that the highs were all over the place with this, but the craziest part was Norman Reedus. And especially after all of his popularity in The Walking Dead and Boondock Saints, there was no reason why he wouldn't have been perfect for this role. The greatest high in the PT adventure or saga was the fact that he had Norman Reedus on the casting list. The downside is a personal one. Hideo Kojima has a habit of being weird for the sake of being weird, in my opinion, and so a lot of times when he makes a game or puts things in a game, they're nonsensical in nature because that's just how Hideo does. And some people really like that. Some people go, that's Hideo being Hideo, and they slap each other on the back and they tip the cap and everything like that. I don't. I find it to be very, very... I don't even know what the word is. I'm going to say pretentious because I don't have a better word, but that would have been the only downside of Silent Hill. You think you had questions about Silent Hill 1 through 4 when it came out? You think you really had something to theorize about then? Imagine what you would have had after PT came out, and every single item he put in that game looks like it would have meant something, but 99% of it didn't mean anything except for the fact that he found a image or a movie he liked and he wanted some sort of, nod to that. And I think that was the only downside, in my opinion. Yeah, I'm going to get a lot of people disagreeing because Hideo fans are Hideo fans, and I can't fault you for enjoying his work. I enjoyed his early Metal Gear Solid work, so, there you go. Anyway, here's... The short message is different, okay? And for as much as it's different, there are a few things... There's actually a few things I have to say about this, okay? Number one, first and foremost... In terms of evolution of a game, this is the most plausible scenario I've seen when it comes to a Silent Hill game that, in terms of evolution, I expected it to go to. The use of digital, media, the use of social media, the use of bullying, things like that. All these things, that made sense to me. It's the half measures that kill me with Short Message. For the visuals, it's the highest point of this game, hands down. It looks good. It really does. And it's a free game. I mean, for a free game, I expected 8-bit graphics and something akin to a Nintendo 64. But it looked good. And I can't deny that. And the use of actual live-action movies mixed with it, semi-jarring, but I like stepping in that direction because it means, at any given time in a future Silent Hill, there will be live-action, characters doing their thing. I liked that. The biggest downside, though, was narratively, all of this was lazy to me. Narratively, the construction of the Silent Hill phenomenon, which I talk about, half serious, half not serious. The usage of characters, the usage of the big bad being a monster that chases you with no way to fight it, with no, things like that. All of these things are exponentially lazier the further you get into the game, and it gets to a point at the end where you're just like, can it be over, please? When it loops, that's the real hell of this game. That's the real purgatory. It loops and starts over again, and you're like, can we please not? I loved the imagery that they presented with what they were given with, I'm sure, the shoestring budget they had. But without proper writing, without a good narrative, you're just saying to me, this game or movie or interactive movie game is literally about a girl who's being bullied, or a girl who does the bullying, and now she has to pay the piper. Like, it's that lazy to me. So the narrative for me for Silent Hill Short Message was its biggest downfall. And in any Silent Hill entry, if your narrative falls through, then we got no business talking. Which is a shame, because everything looks so good. But much like, the upcoming Silent Hill F, everyone says Silent Hill F looks so good. It looks so good. Well, I had learned my lesson from Short Message, where Short Message looked so good. However, when it came to the story, there was nothing there for me. So there's a bit of apprehension about any subsequent Silent Hill that comes out after the fact, because I'm like, maybe it might be bad. Who knows? But yeah, that's Short Message. If Silent Hill Book of Memories was an insult, then Silent Hill Ascension essentially just slapped my mom in the face. Silent Hill Ascension is the worst of the batch. When it comes to picking a high and low, it's very, very easy to pick a low, and there are countless options to choose from. We'll start with the fact that the biggest low is that this is supposed to be an innovative idea. This was supposed to be something that was groundbreaking, never done before, blah, blah, blah. Jacob Novak, the founder of GenVid, decided that he would implement his system of having people watch a movie/game and make votes like a reality TV show. And he did it with numerous IPs. He popped in and said, hey, you like Marvel? Let's watch a show you can all vote on at the end of it, and then we can choose the outcome. It worked for some of these instances, and a lot of people bought into it because of the idea of it being a live service TV show, essentially. When they went to Silent Hill, however, things got a little awful really quickly, as people found that the storyline itself, number one, did not match up with anything related to Silent Hill before this. So we had the storyline taking a weird left turn, and then on top of that, you had people jumping into the storyline using a live chat system akin to Twitch, and choosing how things end, or who dies and who lives and things like that. This was not going to end well. We knew it wasn't going to end well. From the first episode, we knew it wasn't going to end well. But everyone gave it a chance. Well, some people gave it a chance. I watched from the background. One of the reasons why my YouTube channel exploded the way it did in the first year that I really did what I was doing was because I made a video following and chronicling what happened with Ascension, down to the point in which a few interesting things of note happened. Number one, Silent Hill Ascension has blocked me on every social media. They did not like what I had to say. And I was able to interview a producer of Silent Hill Ascension before he was subsequently let go, or laid off, or fired. It still remains to be seen. If you want to see that video, I'll provide it at the end of the video here, but I would definitely recommend taking a look. There was nothing redeemable about this. The idea of everyone jumping in and controlling a narrative was bad on a critical level for any game, not just Silent Hill. The idea that you could get a vote going and a few other people could vote against you and may the best man win and boom, there's the plot, was a silly idea for something as carefully and intricately constructed as a Silent Hill game. Now, even Downpour and Homecoming, storylines that they were still put together and written with a certain intention and a certain way to elicit certain emotions and things like that. With Ascension, there were 3 or 4 options, and everybody had to call in like it was American Idol and go, yeah, I like the one where we kill that girl. And then from there, the entire plotline changed. This then brought the question, well, did they have preloaded videos of the outcomes, or did they make it on the fly? And then people accused them of using AI. It became a mess. The biggest downside is the fact that this game used this system. Now, the idea that Silent Hill is everywhere and infecting everything like some sort of mind virus and everything like that might have been a interesting prospect by itself in a solo game that doesn't require you to turn on and log in and pay for microtransactions for days. But here we are. The redeeming quality for this game, or movie, or show, is absolutely nothing. It's a telling situation, I guess, when you get too innovative for your own good, when you're being innovative for the sake of just being innovative and you're not actually making the IP any better. So I retract that. The only plus side to this whole entire experience was the fact that it was done. It was a learning experience. It told Konami that anytime they feel like getting a little extra creative about how they want to tell a story, maybe they shouldn't. And I hope they learned the lesson well, because it was a microtransaction-fueled battle pass hell based around a TV show, which you can see on Tubi right now. If you go on Tubi, whoever watches stuff on Tubi, you can see the whole entire Silent Hill Ascension TV show, and it's filmed as such. It was so disappointing on all levels, because this was the very first Silent Hill to revitalize the entire IP in the last 5 years. And so people were excited, and we wanted to see something happen. And instead, we got that. And just side note, if you haven't already seen the Silent Hill 2 review I did, the remake, I loved it. Bloober did a wonderful job with it. They changed just enough that way it was a little refreshing getting to see different perspectives and the changing of puzzles and things like that. The only downside I can say is really that it was a remake at all. I would have loved for Bloober to try their hand at making something new, but I'm not complaining about what they produced. I'll tell you that much. Short and sweet. Anyway, that concludes the highs and lows of everything I didn't cover in the first video, the Silent Hills that aren't as prominent and things of that sort. I'm just excited to see Silent Hill F already. I want to get this thing cracked open. Once I get it recorded, I'll be putting it out for you guys and telling you my thoughts, and we can all debate and go back and forth and enjoy whatever that game has for us, or maybe not, who knows. In the meantime, I appreciate you guys. I cannot stress this enough. Over the course of the last 2 or 3 weeks, views have been just climbing and climbing. I've been getting newer and newer faces. People have been discussing with me in the comment section everything from their theories about Silent Hill 1 to any new sort of Silent Hills they need to come out with. And I've been loving it. As you can see, my icon is littered through the comment section talking to you guys. But most importantly, shout out to everybody on Patreon and my YouTube members. If you're not a YouTube member, you're missing out on a archive of videos from my past, old podcast episodes, Silent Hill theories, all that stuff. They're all jammed in there. You get to see those. Plus, you get a fancy new icon. So, nothing wrong with that. All of this, of course, will help me keep the channel running the way it's going right now. Side note, this is a video where I went unscripted entirely. I just wanted to see what it'd be like if I just went 100% unscripted. It felt very old school. But tell me what you think. Tell me if you like more scripted versions, maybe half and half. I don't know. I'm always looking for constructive criticism. I'm not one of those YouTubers that kind of ignores everybody's thoughts and just makes whatever I want. Part of this is what you guys are contributing into it. So, I don't know. I just like to hear from you. In any case, I'm getting the hell out of here, and I will catch you guys in the next video.